The hailstone that shattered Maya Chen's world was the size of a golf ball, and it struck the pavement 3 feet from where 67-year-old Robert Martinez lay bleeding out his life. Maya didn't think. She ran. Behind her, through the reinforced glass doors of MedSupply Plus, her manager Karen Westbrook screamed something about customer service and company policy. Maya couldn't hear the words over the apocalyptic drumming of ice on concrete and the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. What she could see, with the clarity that comes only in moments of absolute crisis, was an elderly man sprawled motionless in a growing pool of blood, while a dozen people with smartphones filmed his potential death from the safety of their cars. The hail felt like bullets. Each stone that struck Maya's back and shoulders sent shockwaves of pain through her body as she sprinted across the 200-yard expanse of strip mall parking lot. Her scrubs were soaked through in seconds. Her hair whipped across her face in stinging, wet strands. But Maya Chen had been an EMT for 8 years, and she knew arterial bleeding when she saw it. The man had maybe 10 minutes before blood loss sent him into irreversible shock. She had to reach him in 2. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" Maya dropped to her knees beside Robert Martinez, her hands already moving with practiced efficiency. The fall had opened a 4-inch gash across his scalp, and blood was pumping out in rhythmic spurts that told her she was looking at a severed temporal artery. Without immediate intervention, this man would die in a strip mall parking lot while people recorded it for social media. Maya ripped off her jacket and pressed it firmly against the wound. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. She needed more pressure, more material. Without hesitation, she tore a long strip from her work shirt and began fashioning a proper pressure bandage. "What's your name, sir?" she called over the storm, checking his pupils for signs of concussion. They were reactive but sluggish. Definitely a head injury, possibly severe. "Robert?" he mumbled, his voice thick and confused. "Robert Martinez. Where? What happened?" "You took a fall, Robert. Hit your head pretty hard. But you're going to be okay. I'm Maya. I'm an EMT, and I'm going to take care of you." Maya had already pulled out her phone with her free hand, dialing 911 while maintaining constant pressure on the wound. The hail continued to pummel them both, but she positioned herself as much as possible to shield the injured man from the worst of it. 911, what's your emergency? This is Maya Chen, EMT badge number 4847. I have a 60-something male with severe head trauma and arterial bleeding at the Westfield Shopping Plaza on Route 34. Patient is conscious but disoriented. Significant blood loss. Needs immediate transport. Ma'am, are you currently on duty? Maya felt a flash of irritation. No, but I'm certified and this man needs help now. ETA on the bus? Dispatch shows 12 minutes due to weather conditions. 12 minutes. Maya looked down at Robert Martinez and made rapid calculations. His skin was already pale and clammy. His pulse was getting thready. 12 minutes might be too long. Robert, I need you to stay with me, okay? Tell me about your family. Are you married? Was, he said weakly. Linda died 3 years ago. Cancer. Kids. Kids don't talk to me anymore. After the drinking. His voice trailed off, and his eyes started to flutter closed. Hey, Robert, stay awake. Look at me. Maya gently tapped his cheek. What did you do for work? Vietnam, he said, focusing on her face with obvious effort. Army medic? Saw plenty of blood over there? Is it bad? Maya smiled at him, the kind of smile EMTs learn to perfect, confident, and reassuring even when everything is going to hell. I've seen worse. You taught me well, actually. I learned combat first aid from a Vietnam vet during my EMT training. Toughest instructor I ever had. This was a lie. Maya had never trained with a Vietnam veteran. But she could see something change in Robert's eyes when she said it, a spark of pride and connection that might keep him fighting. What was his name? Robert asked, and Maya could hear his voice getting stronger. Sergeant Williams, Maya improvised. Always said the first rule of battlefield medicine was never give up on a patient who's still talking to you. Robert actually smiled at that. Sounds like a good sergeant. Maya maintained pressure on the wound while continuing to monitor his vitals. The bleeding had slowed significantly, but his blood pressure was still dropping. She needed to keep him conscious and talking until the paramedics arrived. Robert, I need to ask you something important. Do you have anyone I should call? Anyone who needs to know you're okay? His face darkened. Nobody wants to hear from me. Screwed up too much after Linda died. Kids think I'm just another drunk vet. Maya felt something twist in her chest. This man was alone. Completely alone. And 20 minutes ago, He'd been walking across a parking lot in a hailstorm, probably just trying to get groceries or prescriptions, living a quiet life that nobody else cared about. Now he was fighting for that life, while strangers filmed him bleeding. "Well, you've got me," Maya said firmly. "And I'm not going anywhere." She could hear sirens in the distance now, getting closer. The hail was finally starting to let up, though both Maya and Robert were soaked through and shivering. Maya had lost feeling in her fingers 20 minutes ago, but she maintained steady pressure on the wound. "Maya," Robert said quietly. "Yeah? Thank you, for not leaving me here alone." Maya felt tears mixing with the rain on her face. "Thank you for staying with me, Robert. You're one hell of a fighter." The paramedics arrived in a flurry of organized chaos. Maya gave them a rapid-fire report on Robert's condition, the mechanism of injury, treatment provided, and vital signs. They nodded approvingly as they took over care, noting that her quick thinking and proper pressure application had almost certainly saved his life. "Nice work, Chen," said Tom Riley, one of the senior paramedics Maya had worked with dozens of times. "Clean pressure bandage, good patient management, this guy owes you his life." As they loaded Robert into the ambulance, he caught Maya's hand. "Maya," he said, his voice still weak but his eyes clear. "Nobody's cared whether I lived or died in 3 years. Today you cared. That means everything." Maya squeezed his hand. "You matter, Robert. Don't forget that." She stood in the parking lot, soaked and shivering, watching the ambulance disappear into the storm. Around her, the crowd of onlookers was dispersing, most of them never having left the safety of their vehicles. A few approached her with congratulations, calling her a hero, but Maya barely heard them. She was thinking about Robert's words. "Nobody's cared whether I lived or died in 3 years." How many people were living like that? How many Robert Martinezes were there in the world, isolated and forgotten, convinced that their lives didn't matter to anyone? Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. She looked down and felt her blood freeze. "Get back in here now. We need to talk, Karen." Maya looked back toward MedSupply Plus and saw Karen Westbrook standing in the doorway with her arms crossed and an expression that could melt steel. Behind her, Maya could see other employees whispering and pointing. For the first time since the hail started falling, Maya felt afraid. She had just saved a man's life. She had done everything right, used her training and experience to prevent a death in her own community. She had risked her own safety to help someone who needed her. So why did she suddenly feel like she was in trouble? Maya squared her shoulders and walked back toward the store. Her scrubs were torn and bloody, her hair was a mess, and she was shivering uncontrollably. But Robert Martinez was alive. Whatever Karen Westbrook had to say to her, that fact made everything else secondary. She had no idea that she was about to enter a nightmare that would nearly destroy her life. Maya's phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m., exactly 12 hours after she'd knelt in a parking lot trying to stop a man from bleeding to death. She was still asleep, dreaming about hailstones and blood, when the shrill electronic tone cut through her consciousness like a blade. "Ms. Chen, this is Janet Collins, Human Resources Director for MedSupply Plus Corporate Headquarters. We need to discuss yesterday's incident immediately." Maya sat up in bed, instantly awake. Through her bedroom window, she could see that the storm had passed, leaving behind a crystalline morning that looked nothing like the gray chaos of the previous evening. Emma was still sleeping in the next room, and Maya kept her voice low. "Good morning, Miss Collins. If this is about my helping the injured man yesterday, Miss Chen, what this is about is your abandonment of your assigned duties during company time, which resulted in leaving the store unattended and violating multiple corporate policies. I need you to report to the district office at 9 a.m. sharp." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I'm sorry. Abandonment of duties?" "I administered first aid to a man who was bleeding to death." "What you did, Ms. Chen, was leave your post without authorization while you were on the clock. Store security footage shows you walking away from an open register with customers present. That's a terminable offense under Company Policy Section 4.7. There was one customer in the store, and she was taking shelter from the hail just like everyone else. No one was making purchases during a severe weather event." "That's not the point, Miss Chen. The point is that you abandoned your responsibilities to engage in activities outside the scope of your employment. What if someone had needed medical supplies during those 15 minutes you were absent? What if there had been an emergency in the store itself?" Maya stared at the phone, wondering if she was still dreaming. "There was an emergency. A man was dying in our parking lot. A man who was not our customer, not our responsibility, and not your concern while you were representing MedSupply Plus. Ms. Chen, I want to be very clear about something. When you put on that uniform and clock in at one of our stores, You are an agent of this company. Your actions reflect on our brand, our reputation, and our liability exposure. Yesterday, you created a situation where the company could face legal consequences. Legal consequences for what? Helping someone? Legal consequences for an employee engaging in unauthorized medical treatment while on company time and potentially using company resources. Ms. Chen, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Do not report to work today, and do not discuss this matter with any other employees. 9 a.m. at the district office. Don't be late. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone for a full minute, trying to process what had just happened. Suspended. For saving someone's life. The cold feeling in her stomach spread through her entire body. She made coffee with shaking hands and tried to figure out what to do next. Her shift at the EMT station started at 2 p.m. Maybe her colleagues there would understand what she'd done, even if the corporate suits at MedSupply didn't. That hope died 3 hours later when she walked into Station 19 and saw the expression on Derek Hoffman's face. Derek was her direct supervisor, a 15-year veteran of the department who had made Maya's life difficult from her first day on the job. He was the kind of man who referred to female EMTs as girls and had strong opinions about women in emergency services that he wasn't shy about sharing. Maya had learned to keep her head down around Derek, do her job professionally, and avoid giving him ammunition to use against her. Now he was sitting behind his desk with a file folder open in front of him, and his smile was the kind that predators wore before they pounced. Well, Chen. Heard you had quite an adventure yesterday, playing hero on someone else's dime. I provided emergency medical care to an injured person, Derek. Isn't that what we're trained to do? What we're trained to do, Chen, is follow protocol. What we're trained to do is work within the system. What we're not trained to do is freelance around town looking for opportunities to show off. Maya felt her temper flare. Show off? A man was bleeding to death. A man who wasn't your patient, wasn't your call, and wasn't your responsibility. You know what this looks like, don't you, Chen? It looks like you can't tell the difference between being on duty and off duty. It looks like you think the rules don't apply to you. It looks like you're unstable. Derek opened the file folder and made a show of reading from it. Let's see. March 15th. Unauthorized medical treatment of homeless individual with infected wound. May 3rd. CPR administered to child at grocery store without being dispatched. July 20th. Treatment of motor vehicle accident victim before official EMS arrival. And now this. Seeing a pattern, Chen? Maya stared at him in disbelief. He had been keeping a file on her. Every time she had helped someone in her capacity as a trained medical professional, Derek had logged it as a violation. Those weren't violations, Derek. Those were emergencies. That child at the grocery store would have died if I hadn't. Those were violations of protocol, Chen. Every single one. You know what we call EMTs who can't follow simple rules? Unemployed. Derek closed the file and leaned back in his chair. I've scheduled you for a professional review board hearing next week. Pending the outcome of that hearing, you're suspended from EMT duties. Derek, you can't be serious. My record is spotless. My response times, my patient outcomes, my continuing education, everything is exemplary. Your judgment is compromised, Chen. You think you're some kind of superhero who doesn't need to follow rules. That makes you dangerous to patients and dangerous to your colleagues. The review board will determine whether you're fit to continue in this profession. Maya felt the room spinning around her. 2 jobs. She was being suspended from both of her jobs for saving a man's life. Derek, I have an 8-year-old daughter. I need this job. Should have thought about that before you decided to play cowboy, shouldn't you? Maya walked out of Station 19 in a daze. In the parking lot, she sat in her car for 20 minutes trying to figure out what had just happened to her life. Yesterday, she had been a working single mother with 2 steady jobs and a clear conscience. Today, she was unemployed and apparently under investigation by multiple agencies. Her phone buzzed with a text from her ex-husband, Brandon. Saw the news coverage. This is exactly the kind of irresponsible behavior I've been worried about. We need to discuss Emma's living situation. News coverage? Maya quickly pulled up the local news website on her phone. The headline made her stomach drop. Store employee abandons post during storm to play doctor. The article was worse than the headline. Karen Westbrook had given an extensive interview painting Maya as an unreliable employee who had abandoned her responsibilities to seek attention. The piece quoted Derek Hoffman as an expert source, questioning whether Maya's actions showed concerning judgment issues that might indicate deeper problems. Maya scrolled through the comments section, each one like a knife to the chest. She should have done her job instead of trying to be a hero. Typical millennial thinks the rules don't apply to her. If I owned that store, I'd fire her immediately. You can't trust employees who put their own ego ahead of company policy. My cousin works with her at the EMT station and says she's always been a problem. This doesn't surprise anyone. Maya's hands were shaking as she scrolled through dozens of similar comments. These people didn't know her, didn't know what had happened, didn't care that a man's life had been saved. All they saw was a woman who had violated the sacred principle of corporate obedience. Her phone rang. Emma's school. Miss Chen, this is Principal Morrison. I'm calling because Emma has been having some difficulties today. Some of the other children have been teasing her about the news coverage, and she's quite upset. I think it might be best if you picked her up early today. Maya closed her eyes. Now her daughter was suffering because she had chosen to help someone. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in Principal Morrison's office while Emma clung to her side, tears still drying on her 8-year-old cheeks. The children were saying Mommy got fired for being bad at her job, Emma whispered. They said you left people who needed help so you could play doctor with someone else. Maya felt something break inside her chest. She pulled Emma closer and spoke softly into her daughter's ear. Baby, sometimes doing the right thing makes people angry. Yesterday, I helped a very sick man who could have died if no one took care of him. I want you to remember that helping people is never wrong, even when other people don't understand. But even as she said the words, Maya was beginning to wonder if they were true. Everyone seemed to think she had made the wrong choice. Her employer, her supervisor, the news media, her community, even her ex-husband. Was it possible that they were right and she was wrong? That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a pile of bills spread in front of her. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Emma needed new school supplies. The car needed repairs. Without income from either job, Maya had maybe 3 weeks before she would be completely broke. Her mother called from California. Maya, honey, I saw the news story online. What were you thinking? I was thinking that a man was bleeding to death, Mom. But sweetie, you had responsibilities at work. You can't just walk away from your job every time you see someone who needs help. That's what paramedics and firefighters are for. Maya felt utterly alone. Even her own mother didn't understand. Mom, I am a paramedic. I'm trained to help people in medical emergencies. When you're working as a paramedic, yes. But when you're working at the store, you're a store employee. You have to separate those roles, Maya. You can't let your hero complex ruin your life. Hero complex. Maya had heard that phrase 3 times in the past 24 hours. After her mother hung up, Maya poured herself a glass of wine and sat on her couch staring at the wall. She tried to imagine how she could have handled the situation differently. She pictured herself staying behind the register while Robert Martinez bled out in the parking lot. She imagined watching through the window as he died while she rang up sales that weren't happening anyway. The thought made her physically sick. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Tom Riley from yesterday. Heard about the suspension. Complete bullshit. That guy owes you his life and everyone knows it. Hang in there. Maya stared at the message for a long time. Tom was a paramedic she respected, someone whose opinion mattered. But he was just one voice against a chorus of condemnation. She looked in on Emma, who was sleeping peacefully in her bed, unaware that their world was falling apart. Maya kissed her daughter's forehead and made a promise. She would fight this. She would prove that she had done the right thing. She would not let them destroy her for having the courage to help someone who needed her. She had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The district office of MedSupply Plus looked exactly like what Maya had expected. A sterile corporate environment designed to intimidate rather than inspire. Gray carpeting, fluorescent lighting, and motivational posters about teamwork and excellence covered every surface. Maya sat in an uncomfortable chair across from Janet Collins, who looked like she had been professionally trained to drain the joy out of any room she entered. Beside Janet sat a man in an expensive suit who had introduced himself as Richard Steinberg, corporate counsel. Maya had the sinking feeling that she had walked into an ambush. Miss Chen, thank you for coming in today. I want to make sure we have a clear understanding of the events that occurred yesterday and the company's position regarding your employment status. Janet slid a document across the table. This is the incident report filed by your manager, Karen Westbrook, along with security footage, timestamps, and witness statements. According to our investigation, you abandoned your post at the cash register at 6:47 p.m. and did not return until 7:04 p.m., leaving the store unattended during business hours. Maya picked up the report and scanned it quickly. Karen had painted a picture of Maya as a reckless employee who had endangered customers and violated multiple policies. The witness statements were from other employees who hadn't even been present during the incident. Ms. Collins, I need to point out that there were no customers requiring service during that time period. Everyone in the store was taking shelter from the hail, and the man I helped was bleeding to death in your parking lot. Richard Steinberg cleared his throat. Miss Chen, that brings us to a more serious issue. Our investigation has revealed that during your unauthorized absence from your duties, you utilized medical supplies that belong to MedSupply Plus to treat an individual who was not a customer of this store. Maya stared at him. I'm sorry, what medical supplies? According to this report, you used first aid materials from your personal vehicle to treat the injured individual. Our records show that you purchased those supplies from this store using your employee discount 3 weeks ago. Technically, those materials were company property that you removed from the premises without authorization. Maya felt like she was falling down a rabbit hole into some alternate dimension where helping people was a crime. Those supplies were in my personal first aid kit in my own car. I bought them with my own money. With your employee discount, making them company property under the terms of your employment agreement. Section 12.4 clearly states that any merchandise purchased by employees remains subject to company inventory control until officially transferred out of company custody. Janet opened another folder. Miss Chen, we're prepared to resolve this situation quietly. We're willing to accept your resignation in lieu of termination, and we won't pursue recovery of the medical supplies if you sign this agreement acknowledging that your actions violated company policy. Maya looked at the resignation agreement. It was 3 pages of legal language that boiled down to her admitting that she was wrong to help someone and promising never to work in retail again. What if I don't sign this? Richard Steinberg's expression didn't change, but Maya could see satisfaction in his eyes. Then we'll be forced to pursue all available legal remedies, including criminal charges for theft of company property and a civil lawsuit for damages related to your abandonment of duties. Damages? What damages? Lost productivity, management time spent investigating this incident, potential liability exposure from your unauthorized medical treatment, and reputational harm to the MedSupply brand. We estimate the total damages at approximately $15,000. Maya felt the room spinning around her. They were threatening to sue her for $15,000 because she had saved a man's life. I need time to think about this. Of course, you have until 5 p.m. today to make your decision. After that, we'll be filing both criminal and civil actions. Maya walked out of the district office in a daze. She had 6 hours to decide whether to admit to crimes she hadn't committed or face financial ruin, fighting charges that seemed impossible to defend against. Her phone was ringing as she got to her car. Derek Hoffman. Chen, I hope you cleared your schedule for next Wednesday. Your review board hearing is at 10 a.m. sharp. I'd recommend you get yourself a lawyer, because the charges are serious. Derek, what exactly are the charges? Unauthorized medical treatment, violation of EMT protocols, creating liability exposure for the department, and conduct unbecoming. Any one of those is enough to revoke your license permanently. Maya ended the call and sat in her car staring at the MedSupply Plus building. Through the windows, she could see Janet Collins and Richard Steinberg talking, probably celebrating their successful intimidation of another troublesome employee. Her phone buzzed with a text from Brandon's lawyer. Please contact our office immediately regarding emergency custody modification proceedings. Maya called the number with shaking fingers. Ms. Chen, this is Melissa Craig representing Brandon Chen in custody, matters involving your daughter Emma. We've filed for an emergency modification of custody based on evidence of instability and poor judgment that may endanger the child's welfare. What evidence of instability? The incident report from your employer, the professional misconduct charges from your EMT supervisor, and the criminal charges currently pending against you. I haven't been charged with any crimes. According to our information, MedSupply Plus is filing charges today for theft and abandonment of duties. Ms. Chen, I need to inform you that we've also filed for an expedited hearing based on the serious nature of these allegations. The hearing is scheduled for Friday morning at 9 a.m. Maya felt like she was drowning. Friday? That's 3 days from now. Emergency custody modifications require immediate attention when a child's safety may be at risk. I'd strongly recommend you retain counsel, Ms. Chen. These are serious matters. Maya drove home in a fog of disbelief and growing panic. In less than 48 hours, she had gone from being a working single mother with a clean record to facing criminal charges, professional misconduct proceedings, and a custody battle. All because she had chosen to help someone who was bleeding to death. That evening, she tried to research lawyers she couldn't afford while Emma did her homework at the kitchen table. Maya's laptop screen was filled with websites for criminal defense attorneys, family law specialists, and employment lawyers, each one demanding retainer fees that represented several months of her former salary. Mommy, why are you crying? Emma looked up from her math homework with concern. Maya wiped her eyes quickly. I'm not crying, baby. Just thinking about some grown-up stuff. Is it because of the man you helped yesterday? Some kids at school said you're in trouble for helping him. Maya knelt down beside Emma's chair. Sometimes, sweetheart, doing the right thing is complicated. Some people think I should have stayed at work instead of helping the hurt man. But you know what? If you saw someone who needed help, what would you do? I'd help them, Emma said immediately. Exactly. And that's how I know I raised you right. Emma hugged her mother tightly. I think you're a hero, Mommy. Maya held her daughter and tried not to think about the custody hearing on Friday, or the professional review board on Wednesday, or the criminal charges that might be filed in the next few hours. She had been so sure that doing the right thing would be its own reward. She had never imagined that helping someone could destroy everything she had worked to build. Her phone rang again. This time, it was Officer Bradley, the police officer who had taken her statement at the scene. Miss Chen, I need you to come down to the station. We need to discuss some inconsistencies in your statement from yesterday. What kind of inconsistencies? The kind that suggest you may have interfered with emergency response procedures and created unnecessary risk to public safety. Can you be here in an hour? Maya looked at Emma, who was watching her with worried eyes. Officer Bradley, am I being charged with something? Let's just say we need to clarify some things about your actions during the storm. 1 hour, Miss Chen. Don't make us come looking for you. Maya arranged for her neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, to watch Emma and drove to the police station with sweaty palms and a racing heart. She had never been in trouble with the law in her life, had never even gotten a speeding ticket. Now she was walking into a police station as a potential criminal defendant. Officer Bradley led her to a small, windowless room that smelled like stale coffee and fear. He placed a digital recorder on the table between them and read her Miranda rights. Miss Chen, according to witnesses, you ran into a dangerous weather situation without proper protective equipment, potentially creating an additional emergency for first responders to handle. Is that correct? I ran to help an injured man, without any consideration for your own safety or the safety of the emergency personnel who might have had to rescue you if you had been injured? Maya stared at him. Are you seriously suggesting that I should have let a man bleed to death because helping him might have been dangerous? I'm suggesting that we have trained professionals to handle emergency situations, and when civilians interfere with those procedures, people can get hurt. Officer Bradley opened a file folder. Miss Chen, I've spoken with Derek Hoffman from your EMT station. He's provided some background on your history of violating emergency response protocols. This appears to be part of a pattern of reckless behavior. Derek Hoffman has had it out for me since my first day on the job. Be that as it may, his assessment raises questions about your judgment and your ability to make rational decisions under stress. Combined with the witness reports of your erratic behavior during yesterday's incident, we're looking at a potential charge of reckless endangerment. Maya felt like she was in a nightmare that kept getting worse. Reckless endangerment for helping someone? Reckless endangerment for running into a dangerous situation without proper training or equipment and potentially creating additional risks for emergency responders. The fine is $275 plus court costs. Officer Bradley slid a citation across the table. Miss Chen, I'm issuing you this ticket for reckless endangerment. You have 30 days to pay the fine or request a court hearing. Maya stared at the ticket, trying to process what had just happened. She was being fined for saving someone's life. The system had twisted her heroic actions into criminal behavior. She drove home in silence, the ticket lying on the passenger seat like a snake. When she got home, Mrs. Johnson was waiting with a concerned expression. Maya, dear, I hope you don't mind, but I saw a man in a suit taking pictures of your apartment building earlier. He said he was from Child Services, doing a welfare check. I thought you should know. Child Services. Maya felt what little strength she had left drain out of her body. She tucked Emma into bed and sat alone in her living room, staring at the pile of legal documents, threatening letters, and citation that had accumulated in less than 2 days. Tomorrow she would have to make a decision that would either admit to crimes she hadn't committed or face financial ruin fighting a system that seemed determined to destroy her. Maya had always believed that good people were protected by the universe, that doing the right thing led to good outcomes, that the system ultimately rewarded those who helped others. Tonight, for the first time in her life, she wondered if she had been naive about how the world actually worked. Outside her window, the night was clear and peaceful, showing no signs of the storm that had changed everything. Maya stood in family court at 8:45 a.m. on Friday morning, watching her ex-husband Brandon whisper with his attorney while Emma sat in the hallway outside, confused and scared. Maya had spent the previous night lying awake, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how her life had spiraled so completely out of control in less than a week. Judge Patricia Reynolds entered the courtroom with an expression that suggested she had already made up her mind about Maya's fitness as a mother. The Honorable Patricia Reynolds was 63 years old, had been on the bench for 15 years, and had a reputation for favoring traditional family structures over what she called alternative arrangements. Ms. Chen, I've reviewed the emergency motion filed by your ex-husband regarding the custody of your daughter Emma. These are serious allegations. Brandon's attorney, Melissa Craig, stood up with a folder thick enough to choke a horse. Your Honor, we have substantial evidence that Ms. Chen's recent behavior demonstrates a pattern of poor judgment and instability that poses a risk to Emma's welfare. Maya's court-appointed attorney, James Wong, was a tired-looking man in his 50s who had met Maya for the first time 20 minutes ago. He had already advised her that his caseload was overwhelming and that he couldn't provide the kind of defense she probably needed. Your Honor, Melissa Craig continued, the respondent was suspended from not one but 2 jobs this week for reckless behavior. She abandoned her duties at her retail job to engage in unauthorized medical treatment, which resulted in criminal charges being filed against her. She then violated professional protocols in her EMT position, leading to professional misconduct proceedings that could result in the permanent revocation of her medical license. Judge Reynolds looked at Maya over her reading glasses. Ms. Chen, how do you respond to these allegations? Maya stood up, her legs shaking. Your Honor, I helped a man who was bleeding to death. I used my medical training to save someone's life. Everything that's happened since then has been retaliation for doing the right thing. Ms. Chen, the court is not here to debate whether your intentions were good. The court is here to determine whether your actions demonstrate the kind of judgment and stability required to provide a safe environment for a child. Melissa Craig opened her folder. Your Honor, we have additional evidence that the respondent has been under significant financial stress, which may have contributed to her recent erratic behavior. She's currently unemployed, facing criminal charges, and according to this report from Child Services, living in substandard housing conditions. Maya felt the room spinning. What report from Child Services? Judge Reynolds consulted her papers. Ms. Chen, a caseworker visited your residence yesterday and filed a report noting several concerns about Emma's living environment. Would you like to address these concerns? Maya had no idea what the caseworker had found concerning about their apartment. It was small and old, but it was clean and safe. Emma had her own room, plenty of food, and everything she needed. Your Honor, I don't understand what concerns there could be. Our apartment may not be luxurious, but Emma is well cared for. According to this report, Ms. Chen, the caseworker noted that Emma appeared anxious and confused about your recent legal troubles. She also observed that you seem to be under significant stress, which may be affecting your ability to provide emotional stability for your daughter. Maya felt like she was drowning. The caseworker had twisted Emma's natural concern about her mother's situation into evidence of neglect. Her own stress about facing criminal charges and professional ruin was being used against her as proof that she was unfit. Your Honor, Emma is anxious because people are trying to take her away from her mother for no good reason. Of course she's upset. Judge Reynolds' expression hardened. Ms. Chen, the reason is your demonstrated inability to make appropriate decisions. This court has to consider what's in Emma's best interest, not what's convenient for you. Maya watched helplessly as James Wong failed to object to anything Brandon's lawyer said, failed to cross-examine the social worker, and failed to present any meaningful defense of Maya's parenting. She was being railroaded by professionals who had already decided her fate. After reviewing all the evidence, Judge Reynolds announced, I'm granting the petitioner's request for temporary modification of custody. Emma will be placed in her father's primary custody pending resolution of the respondent's criminal and professional proceedings. Ms. Chen, you'll have supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours. Maya felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Your Honor, please. Emma needs to be with me. I'm her mother. I've never hurt her, never neglected her, never put her in danger. Ms. Chen, you put yourself in danger by running into a hailstorm, and you put your family's stability at risk by making decisions that resulted in your unemployment and criminal charges. This court cannot allow a child to remain in an unstable environment. Maya turned to look at Emma through the courtroom window. Her 8-year-old daughter was sitting alone on a bench in the hallway, swinging her legs and clutching a stuffed animal, completely unaware that she was about to be taken away from the only parent who had raised her. When does this take effect? Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Immediately. Mr. Chen is authorized to take Emma with him today. Ms. Chen, your first supervised visit will be next Saturday at the County Family Services Building. Maya stumbled out of the courtroom and found Emma exactly where she had left her. She knelt down in front of her daughter and tried to figure out how to explain that the world had just ended. "Emma, sweetheart, you're going to go stay with Daddy for a while." Emma's face scrunched up in confusion. "Why? I want to stay with you." "I know, baby. I want you to stay with me too. But some people think it would be better for you to be with Daddy right now, while Mommy sorts out some grown-up problems." "What kind of problems?" Maya looked into her daughter's innocent eyes and felt her heart breaking. "Remember the man I helped in the parking lot? Well, some people think I shouldn't have helped him, and now they're mad at me. They think maybe I make bad decisions, and they want to make sure you're safe. But I'm safe with you, Mommy. You're the best mommy ever." Maya pulled Emma into a hug and held her as tightly as she could without hurting her. "I love you more than anything in the world, Emma. Don't ever forget that. And no matter what anyone tells you, helping that man was the right thing to do. Sometimes doing the right thing is hard, and sometimes people don't understand. But you should never stop helping people who need you." Brandon appeared beside them with Melissa Craig and a social worker Maya didn't recognize. "Emma, are you ready to come stay with me and Kelly for a while?" Emma looked back and forth between her parents, still confused but starting to understand that something serious was happening. "Do I have to?" The social worker, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes but a bureaucratic manner, knelt down beside Emma. "Emma, your daddy has a nice house with a big yard, and Kelly is excited to see you again. You'll still get to visit your mommy, okay? This is just temporary." Maya watched her daughter walk away with Brandon, turning back every few steps to look at her mother, with eyes full of questions Maya couldn't answer. She stood in the courthouse hallway until they disappeared around a corner, then collapsed onto the bench Emma had been sitting on and cried harder than she had since her own mother died. James Wong approached her cautiously. "Miss Chen, I'm sorry about the outcome today. If you can get your legal situation resolved, we can petition for custody modification. But you need to understand that the judge is going to want to see significant changes before she considers returning Emma to your care." Maya looked up at him through her tears. "What kind of changes?" "Stable employment, resolution of the criminal charges, completion of any court-ordered programs, maybe some counseling to address the decision-making issues the judge is concerned about." "Decision-making issues? I saved a man's life." James Wong sighed. "Ms. Chen, I understand your frustration. But from the court's perspective, you made a choice that resulted in losing your job, facing criminal charges, and creating instability for your daughter. Right or wrong, that's how they see it." Maya drove home to an empty apartment that felt like a tomb. Emma's bedroom, with its pink walls and collection of stuffed animals, looked like a shrine to everything Maya had lost. She sat on Emma's bed and tried to figure out what to do next. Her phone rang. Derek Hoffman. "Chen, hope you're ready for Wednesday's hearing. The review board has some additional concerns they want to discuss with you." "What additional concerns?" "Seems like your recent legal troubles have raised questions about your mental stability. The board is going to want to know if you're psychologically fit to continue in emergency services." Maya felt what little strength she had left drain out of her body. "Derek, are you seriously suggesting that I'm mentally ill because I helped an injured person?" "I'm not suggesting anything, Chen. I'm telling you that the board has concerns about an EMT who can't tell the difference between appropriate and inappropriate intervention. They're going to want you to undergo a psychological evaluation before they'll consider reinstating your license. And if I refuse, then you're automatically terminated and your license is permanently revoked. Your choice, Chen." Maya hung up the phone and lay back on Emma's bed, staring at the ceiling. In 1 week, she had lost both of her jobs, her daughter, and potentially her career. She was facing criminal charges, professional misconduct proceedings, and a psychological evaluation that would determine whether she was fit to work in the field she had dedicated her life to. Her phone buzzed with a text from her landlord. "Maya, sorry to hear about your troubles. I'm going to need next month's rent on time, or I'll have to start eviction proceedings. Can't afford to carry non-paying tenants. Hope you understand." Maya laughed, but it came out sounding more like a sob. Frank Morrison had been her landlord for 2 years, had always been understanding about late rent, had even let Emma play in his garden. But now that Maya was a liability, even he was abandoning her. That night, Maya sat in her empty apartment with a bottle of wine and tried to remember what her life had been like a week ago. She had been happy. Not wealthy, not living her dream life, but happy. She had meaningful work that helped people, a beautiful daughter who loved her, and a sense of purpose that got her up every morning. Now she had nothing but a pile of legal documents and a growing certainty that the system she had spent her adult life serving was designed to destroy anyone who thought independently or acted on their conscience. Maya poured another glass of wine and looked at the bottle of sleeping pills on her nightstand. For the first time in her life, she understood why some people just gave up. The fight seemed impossible, the odds overwhelming, and the cost of continuing to resist was destroying everything she cared about. She thought about Robert Martinez, lying in that hospital bed, telling her that nobody had cared whether he lived or died in 3 years. Maya was beginning to understand how he had felt. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Robert Martinez. Got your number from the hospital. Wanted you to know I'm doing well, and that what you did means everything to me. I hope you're okay." Maya stared at the message for a long time. Robert Martinez was alive because she had made the choice to help him. He was recovering, probably talking to his children again, maybe even finding reasons to be hopeful about the future. That had to count for something. Even if the system was trying to destroy her for it, even if everyone else thought she had made the wrong choice, Robert Martinez was alive because Maya Chen had decided that human life was more important than corporate policy. Maya put the wine bottle away and went to bed. Tomorrow she would start fighting back. She didn't know how, she didn't know if she could win, but she was going to fight for her life, her daughter, and her right to help people who needed her. The system might be rigged, but Maya Chen wasn't done yet. Maya was sitting at her kitchen table at 6 a.m. on Monday morning, surrounded by legal documents and empty coffee cups, when Mrs. Ethel Johnson knocked on her door. Maya had been living in the elderly woman's apartment building for 6 months, but they had never had a conversation longer than pleasantries about the weather. "Maya, dear, I hope you don't mind me bothering you so early, but I've been following your situation in the news, and I think I might be able to help." Maya opened the door to find her 78-year-old neighbor standing in the hallway with a manila folder under her arm and a determined expression that reminded Maya of someone who had seen a lot of battles and wasn't easily intimidated. "Mrs. Johnson, I appreciate the thought, but I don't think there's anything anyone can do at this point." "My dear, may I come in? I have something to show you that might change your perspective." Maya led Mrs. Johnson into her living room, clearing legal papers off the couch so the older woman could sit down. Ethel opened her folder and spread several documents across the coffee table. "Maya, before I retired 15 years ago, I was an investigative journalist for 37 years. I covered corruption cases, government cover-ups, and corporate malfeasance. What's happening to you follows a pattern I've seen dozens of times before." Maya looked at the documents. They appeared to be newspaper clippings, court records, and what looked like personnel files. "Mrs. Johnson, I don't understand what you're showing me." "I'm showing you that you're not the first person Derek Hoffman has targeted, and you're not the first employee MedSupply Plus has tried to destroy for helping customers. This is a systematic pattern of retaliation against people who put human decency ahead of corporate policy." Ethel pulled out a newspaper clipping from 3 years ago. Derek Hoffman was forced to leave his previous job in Kansas after 3 female EMTs filed sexual harassment complaints against him. The department settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, and Derek moved here with a clean record because no one bothered to check his background properly. Maya stared at the article. Derek had never mentioned working in Kansas. According to his official biography at the fire department, he had worked in Missouri before coming to their city. "How did you find this?" "Maya, I still have contacts in journalism and law enforcement. When I see an injustice happening, I start digging. And what I've found is that Derek Hoffman has been systematically targeting female EMTs who he perceives as threats to his authority." Ethel pulled out another document. "Jessica Torres, the EMT who works with you at Station 19. She filed a complaint against Derek 18 months ago for creating a hostile work environment. The complaint was quietly buried by Fire Chief Rodriguez, who happens to play golf with Derek every Thursday." Maya felt something stirring inside her chest. Not hope exactly, but the beginning of understanding. She wasn't crazy, she wasn't paranoid, and she wasn't the problem. Derek had been building a case against her from the moment she started working at the station. "What about MedSupply Plus?" Ethel's expression darkened. "That's where it gets really interesting. Maya, do you remember an incident about 2 years ago where a MedSupply employee in Oregon was fired for giving emergency insulin to a diabetic customer who was going into shock?" Maya vaguely remembered reading something about it online. "Yes, I think so. That employee tried to fight the termination and discovered that MedSupply Plus has what they internally call a hero suppression protocol. It's a deliberate corporate strategy to discourage employees from helping customers in emergency situations because it creates liability exposure for the company." Ethel handed Maya a thick stack of documents. "This is from the discovery process in that case. Internal emails, policy documents, and training materials that explicitly instruct managers on how to discipline employees who provide unauthorized assistance to customers. Maya read through the emails, her anger building with each page. The corporate executives discussed employees who helped customers in emergencies as liability risks and publicity problems. There were detailed instructions on how to build disciplinary cases against hero employees and how to coordinate with law enforcement to bring criminal charges when possible. They've done this before? Maya. They've done this 17 times in the past 5 years across different states. They have a standard playbook for destroying employees who put human decency ahead of corporate policy. Karen Westbrook got promoted to district manager specifically because she successfully terminated 3 problem employees who helped customers during emergencies. Maya felt like she was finally seeing the full picture. This wasn't about her judgment or her decision-making. This was about a systematic effort to intimidate employees into ignoring their consciences and following corporate policy regardless of the human cost. What about the police and the court system? Ethel's expression grew even more serious. That's where it gets complicated, Maya. Officer Bradley, who issued you that reckless endangerment citation? He's been Derek Hoffman's hunting buddy for 6 years. Police Chief Stone owes political favors to several business leaders in the community, including MedSupply Plus executives. And Judge Reynolds, who took Emma away from you? She has financial investments in MedSupply Plus's parent company. Maya stared at Ethel in shock. She should have recused herself. Yes, she should have. But judges aren't required to disclose financial conflicts unless they're directly asked, and your court-appointed attorney didn't know to ask the right questions. Maya felt like she had been living in a nightmare, but now she was finally waking up. The system hadn't failed her randomly. It had been deliberately weaponized against her by people with financial and personal interests in destroying anyone who challenged their authority. Mrs. Johnson, how do you know all this? Ethel smiled for the first time since she had arrived. Maya, I may be retired, but I still remember how to investigate a story. And this story stinks to high heaven. I've been making phone calls, filing public records requests, and talking to people who know how these systems really work. But why are you helping me? We barely know each other. Ethel's expression grew soft. Maya, 30 years ago, I was a young journalist investigating corruption in the police department. I was threatened, harassed, and nearly fired for asking difficult questions. But an old-timer at the paper, a man named Bill Harrison, took me under his wing and taught me how to fight back. He said something I've never forgotten. The system only works when good people refuse to be destroyed by it. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. For the first time in a week, someone believed her completely and was willing to help her fight back. What do we do now? Now we build a case. We document everything, we find other victims, and we expose the whole rotten system. But Maya, I need to warn you about something. Fighting back is going to make things worse before they get better. These people have money, power, and connections. They're going to try to destroy you completely rather than let you expose what they've been doing. Maya thought about Emma, staying with Brandon and confused about why her mother couldn't come home. She thought about Robert Martinez, alive and grateful in his hospital room. She thought about all the other women Derek Hoffman had targeted and all the other employees MedSupply Plus had destroyed for having the courage to help people. Mrs. Johnson, I can't let them win. Not just for me, but for everyone else they're going to target. If we don't stop them, they'll just keep destroying good people. Ethel smiled and began gathering her documents. Maya, that's exactly what Bill Harrison would have said. Now, let's get to work. I've already contacted a civil rights attorney who specializes in retaliation cases. His name is David Chen, no relation to you, and he's very interested in meeting with you. Can I afford him? He works on contingency for cases like this. If we win, he gets paid from the settlement. If we lose, you don't owe him anything. But Maya, he's going to want to see everything. Every document, every text message, every email, and he's going to want to interview everyone who might have information about what happened. Maya looked around her empty apartment, thinking about her daughter sleeping in another house and her career hanging by a thread. She had spent the past week feeling like a victim, reacting to attacks and trying to defend herself against an overwhelming system. Now, for the first time, she was ready to go on the offensive. When can we meet with him? This afternoon. But first, we need to do something else. Maya, I want you to call Jessica Torres and ask her if she's ready to tell the truth about Derek Hoffman. It's time for his other victims to start speaking up. Maya picked up her phone and dialed Jessica's number. When Jessica answered, Maya could hear the fear in her voice. Maya, I can't talk to you. Derek said if any of us communicate with you during your investigation, we could be terminated for interfering with disciplinary proceedings. Jessica, I need you to listen to me. Derek has been doing this to female EMTs for years. He targeted you, he targeted me, and he's going to keep targeting others until someone stops him. I found evidence of his pattern of behavior, and I found a lawyer who can help us fight back. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Jessica, are you there? Maya, I'm scared. I need this job. I have 2 kids and a mortgage. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But if we don't stop him, he's going to destroy other women's careers and maybe their lives. We have a chance to expose everything he's been doing, but I need people to speak up about what they've experienced. Another long pause. Then Jessica's voice, quieter but stronger. Maya, what do you need me to do? Maya looked at Ethel, who nodded encouragingly. I need you to tell the truth about what Derek did to you and what you've seen him do to others. I need you to be brave with me, just this once. Okay, Jessica said finally. I'm tired of being afraid of him. What Derek did to me was wrong, and what he's doing to you is wrong. Let's stop him. Maya hung up the phone and felt something she hadn't experienced in a week. Hope. The system might be rigged, but Maya Chen and Ethel Johnson were going to unrig it. David Chen's law office was nothing like the sterile corporate environment Maya had become accustomed to over the past 2 weeks. Located in a converted Victorian house downtown, it felt more like a professor's study than a legal practice, with books stacked on every available surface and walls covered with framed newspaper articles about civil rights victories. David himself was in his early 40s, with graying hair and intense eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He listened to Maya's story without interruption, occasionally making notes but mostly just paying attention with the focused concentration of someone who had heard similar stories many times before. Miss Chen, what you're describing is a textbook case of institutional retaliation. The coordination between your employer, your professional supervisor, law enforcement, and the court system suggests a systematic effort to punish you for challenging authority. Ethel leaned forward in her chair. David, I've documented similar patterns in at least 4 other cases involving MedSupply Plus employees, and 6 cases involving Derek Hoffman's treatment of female subordinates. This isn't isolated misconduct, it's a systematic pattern of abuse. David opened his laptop and pulled up what appeared to be a legal database. I've been researching similar cases across the country. There's a growing trend of employers using criminal charges and professional misconduct proceedings to silence employees who report wrongdoing or act on their conscience in ways that embarrass the company. Maya felt a mixture of validation and horror. So this is happening to other people? Maya, this is happening to hundreds of people. Healthcare workers who report safety violations, retail employees who help customers during emergencies, government workers who expose corruption. The playbook is always the same. Isolate the individual, destroy their credibility, use the legal system to bankrupt them, and make an example that discourages others from speaking up. David pulled out a thick folder. I've already filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against MedSupply Plus, the city, Derek Hoffman individually, and several other defendants. We're claiming violation of your constitutional rights under Section 1983, employment retaliation, and conspiracy to deprive you of your civil rights. Maya stared at the lawsuit papers. Her name was listed as the plaintiff in a case that seemed impossibly complex and intimidating. What does this mean for Emma? For my criminal charges? For the professional review board hearing? It means we're fighting back on all fronts simultaneously. Maya, the people who are trying to destroy you are counting on you being too overwhelmed and too broke to fight back effectively. They expect you to accept a plea deal, admit wrongdoing, and disappear quietly. We're going to do the opposite. Ethel pulled out her own folder. David, I think you should see what I found about Judge Reynolds. David examined Ethel's research and whistled softly. This is excellent work, Ethel. Judge Reynolds has a clear financial conflict of interest that should have disqualified her from hearing Maya's custody case. We can file for an immediate appeal and demand that the custody order be stayed pending review. Maya felt a surge of hope. Does that mean Emma can come home? It means we have grounds to challenge the custody order. But Maya, you need to understand that this is going to get much worse before it gets better. When we file these motions and start exposing the connections between all these people, they're going to escalate their attacks. They might try to have you arrested, they might dig into every aspect of your personal life, and they might pressure other people in your life to testify against you. As if summoned by David's warning, Maya's phone rang. Brandon. Maya, I just got a call from some reporter asking about your mental health history and whether I've ever been concerned about your stability as a mother. What the hell is going on? Maya looked at David, who gestured for her to put the phone on speaker. Brandon, someone is trying to discredit me by spreading lies about my mental health. Did you tell the reporter anything? I told him I didn't know what he was talking about and hung up. Maya, this is getting out of hand. Emma is asking questions I don't know how to answer, and now reporters are calling me. Maybe you should just take whatever settlement they're offering and try to start over somewhere else. David gestured for Maya to hand him the phone. Brandon, this is David Chen, Maya's attorney. The reporter who called you is probably working for MedSupply Plus or their insurance company. They're trying to gather information they can use to destroy Maya's credibility. I'd strongly advise you not to talk to any reporters or investigators without consulting with your own attorney first. Who is this? Maya, why do you need a civil rights attorney? Maya took the phone back. Brandon, I need this attorney because I'm fighting a federal lawsuit against people who are trying to destroy me for saving someone's life. And I need you to not talk to reporters about me or Emma no matter what they tell you. After Brandon hung up, David made notes on his legal pad. They're moving faster than I expected. Maya, someone is conducting opposition research on you, probably trying to find anything they can use to discredit you before our lawsuit gains momentum. What kind of opposition research? They'll look into your financial history, your relationships, your medical records if they can access them, your social media presence, anything that might suggest you're unstable or unfit. They'll also try to find people who will say negative things about you, either because they believe them or because they're being pressured. Ethel pulled out her cell phone. I just got a text from Jessica Torres. She says Derek Hoffman called her into his office this morning and told her that cooperating with your frivolous lawsuit could be considered insubordination. David's expression hardened. That's witness intimidation, which is a federal crime. Maya, do you think Jessica would be willing to record any future conversations with Derek? Maya thought about Jessica, scared and trying to support 2 kids on an EMT's salary. I don't know. She's already taking a huge risk by agreeing to testify. Let me talk to her, Ethel said. I might be able to convince her that fighting back is less risky than staying silent. Over the next 3 hours, David outlined their legal strategy. They would file motions to dismiss the criminal charges based on prosecutorial misconduct, challenge the Professional Review Board's authority to discipline Maya for off-duty conduct, and demand emergency review of the custody order based on Judge Reynolds' conflicts of interest. Maya, I want you to understand that this is going to be expensive for them and time-consuming for us. They're hoping you'll run out of money and energy before we can expose what they've been doing. We need to be prepared for a long fight. How long? Potentially years. But Maya, if we win, we don't just vindicate you. We establish legal precedents that protect other employees from retaliation for helping people. We force companies like MedSupply Plus to change their policies. We make it harder for supervisors like Derek Hoffman to abuse their power. Maya thought about Robert Martinez, recovering in the hospital, and grateful to be alive. She thought about all the future Robert Martinezes who might need help from employees who were too scared of retaliation to provide it. David, what do you need from me? I need you to document everything. Every phone call, every text message, every interaction with anyone connected to this case. I need you to be completely honest with me about anything in your past that they might use against you, and I need you to be prepared for them to attack everything you care about. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop making trouble or things will get worse for you and your daughter. David looked at the message and immediately screenshotted it. Maya, this is evidence of criminal intimidation. We're going to report this to the FBI. The FBI? Maya, when you have local police, prosecutors, and judges all potentially compromised, you go to federal law enforcement. Civil rights violations are federal crimes, and intimidating federal lawsuit plaintiffs is something the FBI takes very seriously. Ethel stood up and gathered her research materials. Maya, I'm going to continue investigating the financial connections between all these players. David, I think we should also look into the mayor's office and city council. If there's corruption at the police level, it probably goes higher. As Maya left David's office that afternoon, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the hailstorm, a sense of purpose. She was no longer just defending herself against attacks. She was fighting to expose a system of corruption that was bigger than her individual case. Her phone rang as she got to her car. Tom Riley, the paramedic who had praised her actions at the scene. Maya, I heard you're fighting back against these bastards. I want you to know that a lot of us in the medical community are watching this case. What they did to you is bullshit, and it's making all of us think twice about helping people. Tom, I appreciate the support, but I need people to speak up publicly, not just privately. Maya, most of us can't afford to lose our jobs. But I'll tell you what I can do. I can connect you with other EMTs and nurses who have been targeted for similar things. There are more of us than you might think. After Tom hung up, Maya sat in her car outside David's office and realized that she wasn't alone. There were other people who had been punished for doing the right thing. other professionals who had been intimidated into silence, other parents who had lost their children to a system that valued compliance over conscience. Maya Chen had become the focal point for a much larger battle over whether good people would be allowed to help each other, or whether corporate and institutional power would be allowed to crush anyone who challenged their authority. She started her car and drove home to her empty apartment, but for the first time in 2 weeks, she wasn't going home to hide. She was going home to prepare for war. Maya was leaving the courthouse after her third motion hearing when Derek Hoffman cornered her in the parking garage. She had just spent 2 hours listening to lawyers argue about whether Judge Reynolds should be removed from her custody case, and she was emotionally drained and physically exhausted. "Chen, I want to talk to you." Maya turned to see Derek approaching her, with an expression that was somewhere between rage and desperation. She immediately reached for her phone, remembering David's instructions to document everything. "Derek, I don't think we should be talking without lawyers present." "Lawyers?" Derek spat. "You and your fancy civil rights attorney think you're going to destroy my career over some bullshit harassment allegations. You have no idea who you're fucking with." Maya started recording on her phone, keeping it partially concealed in her hand. Derek was agitated in a way she had never seen before, and she suddenly realized how isolated they were in the parking garage. "Derek, I'm not trying to destroy anyone's career, I'm just trying to get my life back." "Your life back?" Derek laughed, but it sounded more like a snarl. "Chen, your life was shit before this happened. Single mother, working 2 jobs, living in a crappy apartment. At least now you have something to blame for your failures." Maya felt her temper flare, but she forced herself to stay calm. Derek was clearly trying to provoke her, possibly hoping she would do something he could use against her. "Derek, why are you really here? What do you want?" Derek stepped closer, and Maya could smell alcohol on his breath. "I want you to drop this lawsuit and admit that you violated protocol. I want you to stop dragging my name through the mud with your feminist bullshit. And I want you to understand that if you don't back down, I'm going to make sure you never work in emergency services again." Maya kept the recording running and tried to keep Derek talking. "How exactly are you going to do that? Chen, you have no idea how connected I am in this community. The fire chief, the police chief, half the city council, they all know me, they all trust me, and they all know you're just another unstable female who can't handle the pressure of real emergency work." "Derek, are you threatening me?" "I'm not threatening you, Chen. I'm promising you, drop this lawsuit or I'll destroy what's left of your pathetic life. You think losing your jobs and your kid was bad? I can make things so much worse for you." Maya's phone was still recording, capturing every word of Derek's confession. But she needed more. "Derek, why are you so worried about this lawsuit? If you haven't done anything wrong, what are you afraid of?" Derek's expression shifted, and for a moment Maya saw something that looked almost like panic in his eyes. "I'm not afraid of anything, Chen, but I've worked too hard to build my reputation to let some uppity bitch tear it down with lies." "What lies, Derek? I haven't lied about anything. You lied about me harassing you. You lied about me targeting female EMTs. You lied about me covering up complaints." Derek was getting more agitated with each word. "I've been in this business for 15 years, Chen. I know how to handle problem employees, and I know how to make them disappear." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "Make them disappear? Jessica Torres, Amanda Williams, Sarah Martinez, they all learned to keep their mouths shut and follow orders. You could have learned the same lesson, but you had to be the hero. You had to make everything about your precious conscience." Maya realized that Derek was confessing to systematically harassing multiple female employees. Her phone was capturing everything. "Derek, what did you do to those women?" Derek's expression grew ugly. "I did what needed to be done to maintain discipline in my department. Women like you think you can waltz into a man's profession and start making demands, filing complaints, acting like you know better than people who have been doing this job since before you were born. So you targeted them for being women? I targeted them for being problems, Chen. Just like I'm going to target any other female who thinks she can challenge my authority. The fire department is not a place for social justice warriors and feminist crusaders. It's a place for professionals who follow orders and respect hierarchy." Maya could hardly believe what she was hearing. Derek was not only admitting to harassment and retaliation, but he was explaining his motivation in terms that would make him legally liable for discrimination. "Derek, don't you think women can be good EMTs? I think women are too emotional and too weak to handle real emergency situations. I think they create drama and disruption in what should be a disciplined, professional environment. And I think the department would be better off if we stopped hiring them altogether." Maya's recording captured every word of Derek's sexist rant, but she wasn't done yet. "Derek, what about the complaints against you? Jessica Torres filed a formal complaint 18 months ago. Derek's face darkened. Jessica Torres is a lying bitch who couldn't handle being told to do her job properly. That complaint was bullshit, and Chief Rodriguez knew it was bullshit. That's why it got buried. So Chief Rodriguez helped you cover up the complaint? Chief Rodriguez understands that running a fire department requires strong leadership and discipline. He knows that if you give women an inch, they'll take a mile. He knows that sometimes you have to make examples of troublemakers to keep everyone else in line. Maya realized that Derek was also implicating Fire Chief Rodriguez in the cover-up. Her phone was capturing evidence of a conspiracy that went far beyond one bad supervisor. Derek, what about the medical supplies? The report that said I stole company property? Derek smiled, and it was the most chilling expression Maya had ever seen. Chen, you want to know the truth about that? I suggested that angle to Karen Westbrook. I told her how to make it look like theft so the company would have grounds for criminal charges. I told her exactly what to put in her report to make you look like a thief and a liar. Maya felt her heart pounding. Derek was confessing to conspiracy, perjury, and filing false reports. You coordinated with Karen Westbrook? Chen, you still don't get it, do you? This whole thing was coordinated. Me, Karen, Officer Bradley, even the prosecutor. We all agreed that you needed to be made an example of. We all agreed that letting you get away with violating protocol would encourage other troublemakers to think they could ignore authority. Maya stared at Derek in shock. He was confessing to a criminal conspiracy involving multiple government officials and corporate representatives. Derek, are you saying that Officer Bradley filed false charges against me on purpose? I'm saying that Officer Bradley understands the importance of backing up his fellow professionals when some civilian thinks she knows better than the system. I'm saying that sometimes you have to bend the rules a little to teach important lessons. Derek stepped even closer, and Maya could see sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool temperature in the parking garage. But Chen, here's what you really need to understand. Everything I just told you, your word against mine, no one's going to believe that I just confessed to all of this. They're going to think you're making it up, just like they think you're making up all the other accusations against me. Maya held up her phone, showing Derek that the recording app was still running. Actually, Derek, everything you just said is on tape. Derek's face went white, then red, then white again. You recorded me? You can't record me without my permission. That's illegal. Derek, we're in a public parking garage, and you approached me without my consent. In this state, I have every right to record our conversation for my own protection. Derek lunged for Maya's phone, but she was younger and faster. She dodged away from him and ran toward the parking garage exit, still holding the phone. Chen, get back here. You can't use that recording. I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. Maya kept running until she reached the street, where there were other people around. Only then did she stop the recording and immediately upload it to cloud storage, just as David had taught her. She sat in her car with shaking hands and listened to the recording. Derek had confessed to sexual harassment, conspiracy, perjury, filing false reports, and civil rights violations. He had implicated Fire Chief Rodriguez, Karen Westbrook, Officer Bradley, and the prosecutor's office in a coordinated effort to destroy Maya's life. Maya called David immediately. David, I have Derek Hoffman on tape confessing to everything. Everything. Maya, slow down. What exactly did he confess to? Maya played portions of the recording over the phone, and she could hear David's sharp intake of breath as Derek's words came through clearly. Maya, this is extraordinary evidence. Derek didn't just confess to harassing you, he confessed to a criminal conspiracy involving multiple government officials. This recording is going to blow up their entire case. What happens now? Now we go to the FBI, the state attorney general, and the federal prosecutor. Maya, what Derek confessed to isn't just civil rights violations, it's racketeering. These people were using their government positions to systematically target anyone who challenged corporate authority. Maya sat in her car outside the courthouse, finally understanding the full scope of what she had been fighting against. This wasn't just about her individual case. It was about a coordinated system of corruption designed to protect powerful interests by destroying anyone who dared to act on their conscience. Her phone rang. Ethel Johnson. Maya, dear, turn on Channel 7 News. They're running a story about your case, and it's not what we expected. Maya found the news channel on her phone and watched as a reporter interviewed Karen Westbrook outside the MedSupply Plus corporate headquarters. Ms. Westbrook, recent allegations suggest that your company has a policy of retaliating against employees who help customers during emergencies. How do you respond to those charges? Karen looked directly into the camera with an expression of wounded indignation. These allegations are completely false, and are being made by a disgruntled former employee who violated multiple company policies and is now trying to avoid responsibility for her actions. Maya Chen abandoned her duties during a severe weather emergency, potentially endangering customers and other employees. When she was appropriately disciplined for this violation, she chose to file frivolous lawsuits rather than accept accountability for her poor judgment. The reporter continued. But Ms. Westbrook, witnesses at the scene say Ms. Chen saved a man's life by providing emergency medical treatment. Doesn't that justify her actions? Karen's expression grew colder. Our employees are not trained medical professionals, and when they attempt to provide medical treatment, they create liability issues for the company and potentially dangerous situations for customers. Ms. Chen's actions, while perhaps well-intentioned, violated clear company policies designed to protect everyone's safety. Maya watched in amazement as Karen Westbrook lied smoothly and convincingly on television, portraying Maya as an unstable employee who had endangered people by helping someone who was bleeding to death. But Maya wasn't worried anymore. She had Derek Hoffman's confession, including his admission that he had coached Karen on what to include in her false reports. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out. 6 months later, Maya Chen stood in the main conference room at Station 19, watching Fire Chief Lisa Thompson pin a commendation medal to her uniform, while Emma beamed with pride from the front row of folding chairs. The room was packed with local officials, fellow EMTs, hospital staff, and community members, including Robert Martinez, who had recovered completely from his injuries and become something of a local celebrity for his eloquent speeches about the importance of Good Samaritan actions. Maya Chen, Chief Thompson announced, demonstrated exceptional courage, medical skill, and moral character when she risked her own safety to save the life of Robert Martinez during a severe weather emergency. Her actions exemplify the highest ideals of emergency medical service and remind us all that our duty to help others transcends policy manuals and corporate protocols. The applause was thunderous, but Maya found herself thinking about all the people who weren't in the room. Derek Hoffman was serving a 6-year sentence in federal prison for conspiracy, civil rights violations, and racketeering. Karen Westbrook had been fired from MedSupply Plus and was facing multiple civil lawsuits. Officer Bradley had been terminated and was under investigation by the state attorney general. Judge Reynolds had been censured by the Judicial Ethics Committee and forced to recuse herself from all cases involving employment disputes. Most importantly, Fire Chief Rodriguez had been forced to resign in disgrace after the FBI investigation revealed the full extent of his knowledge about Derek's harassment of female employees. The legal victory had been total. Maya's criminal charges were dismissed with prejudice. Her EMT license was not only restored, but came with a formal apology from the state medical board. Emma had been returned to her custody within a week of Derek's recorded confession becoming public. And the federal civil rights lawsuit had resulted in a settlement that ensured Maya's financial security for years to come. But the personal victory was even more meaningful. Maya had been promoted to training supervisor at Station 19, a position that allowed her to teach new EMTs about ethical decision-making and the importance of putting patient care ahead of bureaucratic convenience. MedSupply Plus had been forced to implement the Good Samaritan Employee Protection Act nationwide, a policy that protected employees who provided emergency assistance to customers and community members. Similar legislation had been passed in 12 states, with Maya serving as a key advocate for the measures. Maya, Chief Thompson continued, your courage in fighting back against systematic retaliation has made it safer for all emergency responders to act on their training and conscience. You didn't just save Robert Martinez's life. You saved the principle that helping people should be rewarded, not punished. After the ceremony, Maya found herself surrounded by well-wishers and reporters, but she kept looking for the people who had made her victory possible. Ethel Johnson, now 84 years old but still sharp as a razor, approached with a satisfied smile. Maya, dear, I have some news that I think will interest you. I just got off the phone with a journalist friend in Oregon. Apparently, 3 more MedSupply Plus employees have come forward with similar stories of retaliation for helping customers. Your case opened the floodgates. David Chen appeared beside them, looking tired but pleased. Maya, the Justice Department has opened a nationwide investigation into corporate retaliation against employee Good Samaritans. Your case is going to be the template for prosecuting this type of systematic abuse. Maya looked around the room and saw Tom Riley talking with several other paramedics about the importance of supporting colleagues who take risks to help people. She saw Jessica Torres, now promoted to senior EMT, explaining to a reporter how Derek's recorded confession had given her the courage to speak publicly about his harassment. Most importantly, she saw Robert Martinez deep in conversation with Emma, probably telling her stories about her mother's bravery during those terrifying minutes in the parking lot. Maya, a voice behind her said, I wanted to thank you personally. Maya turned to see Mayor Diane Chambers, the same mayor who had distanced herself from Maya's case when it looked politically dangerous. Mayor Chambers, thank you for coming. Maya, I owe you an apology. When this situation first developed, I was concerned about the city's liability exposure and didn't fully understand what you had been subjected to. Your courage in fighting back has exposed corruption in our police department and court system that needed to be addressed. You've made our community better. Maya nodded politely, but she remembered how quickly the mayor had abandoned her when she needed support. Some people could be counted on in difficult times, and others couldn't. Maya had learned to tell the difference. Later that evening, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching her mother's commendation medal, Maya sat on her couch with a glass of wine and thought about how dramatically her life had changed. She was living in a better apartment now, in a neighborhood where Emma could walk to school safely. Her relationship with her mother had been repaired after the older woman realized how wrong she had been about Maya's situation. She was even dating David Chen, though they were taking things slowly and focusing on their friendship first. Most importantly, Maya woke up every morning knowing that her work mattered and that she was part of a system that supported people who wanted to help others rather than punishing them for it. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Miss Chen, my name is Sarah Williams. I'm an EMT in Texas, and my supervisor has been targeting me the same way Derek Hoffman targeted you. I saw your story on the news and wondered if you might be able to help me. Maya stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, Sarah, I'd be happy to help. You're not alone, and you don't have to accept being treated badly. Can we talk tomorrow? Maya put her phone down and looked at the commendation medal sitting on her coffee table. The inscription read, For exceptional courage in service to others. The real courage, Maya realized, hadn't been running through the hailstorm to help Robert Martinez. The real courage had been refusing to accept a system that punished people for doing the right thing and fighting back against people who had more power, more money, and more connections than she did. Maya Chen had learned that the system only worked when good people refused to be destroyed by it. And she had learned that even when the system seemed impossibly rigged against ordinary people, the truth could still win if someone was brave enough to fight for it. Outside her window, the night was clear and peaceful, nothing like the storm that had changed everything 6 months ago. But Maya was ready for whatever storms might come. She had learned how to fight back, how to find allies, and how to turn a system designed to crush individual conscience into one that protected and supported people who wanted to help each other. The next morning, Maya would call Sarah Williams and begin the process of helping another good person fight back against corruption and abuse. Because Maya Chen had learned the most important lesson of all. Saving one person was heroic, but teaching others how to save themselves was revolutionary. Emma appeared in her doorway in her pajamas, holding the commendation medal. Mommy, can you tell me again about the man in the parking lot? Maya pulled her daughter onto the couch beside her. Which part do you want to hear, sweetheart? The part where you decided to help him even though it was dangerous. Maya smiled and began the story again, the same way she would tell it for the rest of her life. Sometimes, Emma, you see someone who needs help, and you have to choose between being safe and being kind. The right choice isn't always the easy choice, but it's always the choice that lets you look at yourself in the mirror and know that you're the kind of person who helps others when they need you. Emma snuggled closer to her mother. I want to be that kind of person too, Mommy. You already are, baby. You already are.